the previous video, we began with the chapter Asia, and in that we discussed about Asia's location, its political divisions, and two of its physical features, that is the northern lowlands and the central mountain belt, in detail. Today, we shall cover the remaining three physical features, that is the southern plateaus, the river valleys of Asia, and some of these islands. Alright? Okay, so first physical division that we shall be talking about today is the southern plateau regions of Asia. Interestingly, all the three plateau regions of Asia are located along its southern margin. Alright, so this is the Asian continent, and all the three plateaus are located along the southern portion of the Asian continent. And all these plateaus are quite old geologically, and they are made up of ancient crystalline metamorphic rocks. And surprisingly, all the three plateaus form peninsulas. We know what are peninsulas. They are landmasses which jut or protrude into the sea and are surrounded by water on all the three sides. So yes, all the plateaus of Asia are also major peninsulas. So let us understand their characteristics one by one in detail. The first plateau is the Arabian Plateau, which is located along the southwestern portion of Asia. Here, let's zoom into it further. And this is how the plateau looks like. This is the entire Arabian Plateau, and as you can see, it is surrounded by water bodies on all the three sides. Towards the northeast, it's bound by the Persian Gulf. Towards the east, it's bound by the Arabian Sea, and towards the south and southwest by the Red Sea. So like this, water bodies entirely engulf the Arabian Plateau. Now, Arabian Plateau, as you can see here along the south, it's quite darker. That darker tint indicates that this region is quite higher. So towards its south, it's quite higher, and it goes on becoming gentler towards the northern side. Alright, so it has a very steep slope along the Red Sea coast, while it has a very gentle slope along the Persian Gulf. And this plateau region contains one of the largest deserts of Asia, that is the Arabian Desert. Moving on, the second plateau region in Asia is the entire Deccan Plateau of India. The Deccan Plateau of India is located along the southern portion of India. So let's go into it further. And this is how, or this is where the plateau region is located. This entire roughly triangular portion is the Deccan Plateau region, or the Deccan Peninsula of India. As you can see, it's engulfed or surrounded by water bodies. Towards the west, it's completely surrounded by the northwestern branch of the Indian Ocean, that is the Arabian Sea. Towards the east, it's completely bound by the Bay of Bengal, and towards the south, it's surrounded by the Indian Ocean. Just like the Arabian Plateau, the Deccan Plateau is also very high and very steep towards the west, as it is bound by high western Ghats, and towards the east it is bound by the very low and discontinuous eastern Ghats. And here again, because of the slope of the land, it is very high and steep towards the west, and it goes on becoming gentler and very low towards the east. And we know that the Deccan Plateau is again one of the oldest physical divisions of India. Millions of years ago, this region was a very active volcanic zone. Volcanic eruptions were very common then, and that's why out of the extensive lava flows, the Deccan Plateau has been formed. And that's why in this region you'll find a black volcanic soil, because of these volcanic eruptions which were very common and prevalent during the ancient times. Okay, now there are many important rivers which originate along the western part of the plateau and which flow towards the east, like Mahanadi, Godavari river here, Krishna, Kaveri. All these are important rivers of the Deccan Plateau. The next plateau region is located along the southeastern part of Asia, which is known as the IndoChina Plateau. Alright, so let's look into it further. And this is how the plateau region looks like. it actually covers two countries, that is Myanmar here and China. Alright, so sometimes IndoChina Plateau or Peninsula is also referred to as the Plateau of Shan and Yunnan. Shan refers to the plateau part of Myanmar and Yunnan refers to the plateau region of China, and that's why Yunnan Shan Plateau or Shan Yunnan Plateau. Now, again here it's quite steep towards the west and it goes on becoming gentler towards the east. Alright. And important rivers of Myanmar are Irrawaddy and Salween, while the important Chinese rivers which originate in the Indochina Peninsula are Wanhe and Yangtze. Alright, so they originate here in the west and they flow into the Pacific Ocean. Now, all these three plateaus that we discussed about are located along the southern portion of Asia that we know. But the two plateaus, that is the Indochina Plateau and the Deccan Plateau of India, they are highly dissected and cut by rivers. Alright, so the topography, the relief is not very smooth, but it is very, very rough because it is cut by many rivers and streams. Moving on, the next physical feature of Asia is its river valleys. Now we know that during ancient times, all the major civilizations of the world, they have either thrived along the banks of the rivers or they have been found along the coastal areas. That's because water becomes easily available for agricultural as well as domestic purpose. Rivers provide modes of transportation, plus river valleys are source of fertile tracts of extensive land which becomes very much mandatory for carrying out agriculture. And that's why all the ancient civilizations have thrived across the river valleys. Even presently, major cities of the world are located along the river banks, right? So, let's have a look at the major river basins of Asia. First one being the river basins or the river valleys of Euphrates and Tigris rivers. Okay, these are located in the Arabian along the western region of Asia. And they originate in the west and they flow or empty themselves into the Persian Gulf. Years ago, these rivers were thriving areas, quite green, but presently this region is entirely arid. Okay, they are completely dry, but previously the Mesopotamian or the Iraq civilization has grown and flourished on the banks of these two rivers. Then, the second set of rivers are located in the Indian Ocean. We have the Indus River, we have the Ganga River, and then we have the river Brahmaputra. So river Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra and their tributaries, they originate in the mighty Himalayas here and they flow towards the south and empty themselves in the Indian Ocean. So all these rivers, they carry a huge amount of silt, huge amount of sediments with them, and they deposit them along the foothills of the Himalayas. So over the years, they have given rise to the great North Indian plains, which are very fertile, and all our ancient civilizations, as we know, they have thrived along the North Indian plains. Then, the Chinese civilization has grown and flourished across river Wanhe, Sikiang, river Yangtze, all which originate here in the central portion, and they all flow into the Pacific Ocean. River Yangtze here, which is about 6,300 kilometers long, is one of the, or it is the longest river of Asia. That is river Yangtze. Okay, so now based on the water bodies or ocean or seas into which these rivers drain or empty themselves into, we can have three major ocean drainage basins. Okay, so we have a set of rivers which flow into Indian Ocean, we have a set of rivers which flow into the Pacific Ocean, and we have another set of few rivers which drain themselves into the Arctic Ocean. Namely, river Ob, Yenisei and Lena, which we had discussed in the previous video. Ob, Yenisei and Lena are three important rivers of North Asia which empty themselves in the Arctic Ocean. So this is the Arctic Ocean rivers. And then we have rivers which drain into Pacific Ocean like Chao Phraya, Menam, Sikiang, Yangtze, Wanhe, which is also known as the Yellow River, they empty themselves in the Pacific Ocean. And all the Arabian rivers and the Indian rivers, they empty themselves in the Indian Ocean. So these are your Indian Ocean drainage basins. To understand this very well, vividly further, do refer your textbook and the World Atlas. Okay, now the last physical feature that we have is the island groups of Asia. Now Asia has extensive islands in the Pacific Ocean and fewer islands in the Indian Ocean. So here in the Persian Gulf, there is one small island nation called Bahrain, alright. Then along the southern part of India, we have the island of Sri Lanka. And India has two sets of islands, one being the Lakshadweep Islands, which are located in the Arabian Sea, and these are coral islands, while Andaman and Nicobar Islands here in the Bay of Bengal, they are volcanic in origin. They are actually peaks of submerged mountains. Yeah. Then towards the eastern part of Asia in the Pacific Ocean, we have the islands of Japan. Japan is not made up of one single island, but it's made up of 4 consecutive series of islands, namely Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu. Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu make up the Japan islands. Alright, then here you have the famous island of Taiwan, which is also a famous port city or a port country. Then here you have the Philippines, again a group of many islands. It's an archipelago. And Indonesia here, the world's largest archipelago, is located in the Pacific Ocean. An archipelago is a series of group of islands. So Indonesia is the largest, which is made up of more than 17,000 islands. Yes, you heard that right. 17,000 islands make up Indonesia. And famous Indonesian islands are Java, Bali, Sumatra, Borneo, which are famous tourist destinations also. Then Singapore here is also an island nation. Okay, so like this, these are all the major islands of Asia. Some are very famous for their volcanic activity. Some are very famous for their tourist destination. Some are very famous for their scenic beauty. Now, the islands which are located here along the margins of the Pacific Ocean are volcanic in origin. That's because the margin of the Pacific Ocean is highly unstable region, because the ocean bed or the Earth's plate which makes up the Pacific Ocean is going and getting subducted or pushing itself under the entire Eurasian plate. Alright, so here volcanic eruptions, earthquakes are very, very common. That's why Japan at least feels few tremors every day. A very good example of volcanic eruptions that happen in this region was once, which was located in the islands of Indonesia, called Mount Krakatoa. Okay, so Mount Krakatoa was an island, volcanic island, which was located between Java and Sumatra Islands in Indonesia in the Indian Ocean. In August 1883, there was such a violent eruption that the entire mountain was blown away, the entire island was blown away, which further triggered earthquakes and tsunamis, which led to death of about 35,000 people and more. The eruption was so violent and catastrophic that sound was heard even in Australia and as far as India. Okay, so like this, people living in these island nations have to face the brunt of nature. And this is how the Asia chapter is covered so far.